So we want to put those two things together. If you got your Bible or your Bible app, turn or swipe on over to 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 3, we are continuing our series in what it means to live as a different person, literally otherworldly in this world. And while you're turning there, I'm going to save some of your guys' lives today by reminding you next week is Mother's Day. Next Sunday's Mother's Day. Don't forget your mommy. You know the best thing you can do is bring mommy or grandma or whoever's a mother figure in your life to church next week. Because next week we're going to celebrate moms. I'm going to be talking about God's design for mothers and motherhood. And so bring out a mommy if you got one around here. And we are going to not only feed you God's word, but we are going to give moms some glorious lip balm next week, custom made just for you. Look at this, bam, right there. Ladies and gentlemen, not only do we care about your spiritual lives, but we want you to have luscious lips, okay? So we care about the inside and the outside here at the Orchard. So we're going to hook up moms next week with our custom-made lip balm, and so I think it's paraben-free or everything else that's free. It's just glorious, and you can make out with your husband or whatever you want to do next week. But that's for our moms next week. We are in 1 Peter chapter 3, and we are going to start in verse 1. We're live all over the world, coming to you from beautiful, sunny Southern California. I'm so glad you're here with us, wherever you're at. It's great to have you on board for this morning. We are in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1. Likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, circle husbands, so that, why would I do that as a wife? Even if some do not obey the word, in other words, they're not Christians, they're not followers of God, only the wife is, they may be won, circle one, without a word by the conduct, circle conduct, of their wives when they see your respectful, circle respectful, and pure conduct. Do not let your adorning be merely external, the braiding of hair, the putting on of gold jewelry, or the clothing that you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, circle heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is in God's sight very precious. For this is how the holy women who used to hope in God would adorn themselves by submitting to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And if you are her children, if you do good, circle good, and do not fear anything that is frightening. So we're talking about the order of your life. And so last week we talked about the order, social and governmental order. So we don't rebel just against our government just because we don't like something. We're submissive to our government, even if government's imperfect. So God's will for all of us is to act in godly order. It doesn't mean that everything that people over us, the authority that God's placed over us, will do everything right, but it means that we trust God even when imperfect authority is over us. So we talked about that last week. Governmental order, social order, and now we're going to move all the way into domestic order. How should you order your home so your home is how God built it and will be blessed and not chaotic and anxiety-ridden? So we're working all the way from the government of God to the government of people to social order. Now we're in our home order. How do we order our homes so that we sense God's blessing over our home? So I'm going to dig into your home the next few weeks. So next week's Mother's Day, and then the week after that we do husbands. But Peter starts with the wife today. And so that's where we're going to start. If you got your notes, pull them out. They should be inside your bulletin. By the way, how are my fireplace people at 9 o'clock? Are they alive? Is there any sound out there at all? Okay. Are all of them dead? Good. Hey, if you got your notes, pull them out. They should be inside your bulletin. If you're online with us, I'm so glad you're here with us. At the top of the comment section on Facebook, you'll see a link. Click on that link. If you're on YouTube with us, below the video, you'll see a description area. Click on that link, and my notes will come up. Number one is this. Here's how to be an otherworldly wife. You might be single in here or whatever, a widow, it doesn't matter. You might get married in the future, and so if you're a young woman or a middle-aged woman or whatever, and this might be your future if you end up getting married, even if you're not. Even if you're like, I'm going to be single my whole life, awesome. You're still going to know married women in your life as friends, coworkers, whatever, and you'll be able to speak into their life. So regardless of where you're at in your life as a woman, you can use what God has built into his word to understand God's future for you as a spouse and or even as a single woman speaking into other people's lives. Here we go. Number one, as a wife, otherworldly support. You are built as otherworldly support. What does that mean? Here it is. After Peter, which is, I just read out of you 1 Peter, after Peter gave God's will for government and social order, which we looked at last week, he turns now to domestic order. The greatest strength of any society is its homes. The strength of any society is how well the home functions. The greatest strength of the home, though, is family relationships. So my home can only be as strong as the family relationships, the functional side of the home. And the greatest strength of the family relationships is the individual responsibility of each member. So watch how this works. A society is only as strong as its home, because it's built on the foundation of families. The home now is only as strong as the relationships that are inside of there. But the relationships inside the home are only as strong as everybody that's in the home, their individual responsibilities. Are they doing their individual responsibilities to make the home stronger and to make society stronger? It literally comes down to me and you and how our homes function. Here's our first principle. When members of the home team, see what I did there? The home team? Anybody? 6 people are awake? Okay. I thought that was kind of clever. Obviously it was not. When every member of the home team does their role, the home team wins. So I'm going to help you with this. Everybody look at me. Most of us have never heard this in our whole entire lives. So I want to be really sensitive to that. Especially if you're a young woman in your teens or your 20s or whatever here, our culture has lied to you your whole life about how to function with femininity in our culture. It's basically told you, do whatever you want. If somebody gets in your way, just stomp on them. If your husband gets in your way, bail on him. And we have this just chaotic femininity in our culture. It's literally toxic to femininity because it's literally taught women something that is against God's design for femininity. So when I get to masculinity in a couple weeks, we're going to talk about men's responsibility, but today we start with femininity. And I'm going to point to something you may have never even thought of. Your marriage is not a free-for-all. Your marriage isn't what's in it for me. And if I'm not happy, I'm out. Your marriage is a team. You are a 2-person team that you voluntarily joined. I can't even think how many marriages I've done over the last 25 years as a pastor. And when we do premarital counseling, we walk alongside of couples and go, marriage isn't about you. Marriage is about us. It's not about me, it's about we. So when we do life together as a husband and a wife, if I know what my role is on the team, every team has roles, every company has roles, every military branch has roles of what everybody does. If everybody doesn't do their role, in the military, somebody dies. On a team, if everybody doesn't do the role, the family or the team never wins. And so it's frustrating to be on a team where everybody's not doing their job. Do your job. So I'm a coach, a football coach in this valley. I've been for years. And I just love football. I was an athlete all the way through high school, and I've been a football coach for about almost 20 years. One of the values of being a coach is that you take individual people, individual young men, and you make them into a team. You make them into a squad. But guess what? Everybody on the team doesn't have the same role. Everybody's not a quarterback or a lineman or a linebacker or a receiver. Everybody's not the same thing. Everybody's got their specific job to do. Everybody's equal on the team in value, but they're totally different in role. And if everybody doesn't do their job, if everybody goes out there and goes, dude, I heard what the coach said, I'm going to do whatever I want. And you know what? The team loses all the time. And you know, it's really frustrating to be on a losing team, especially when it doesn't have to be like that. You're like choosing to lose because you're not doing your job. That's exactly the same way why we have frustration in our marriage, because literally no one has probably ever taught you marriage is supposed to be teamwork and cooperation, not competition and hurt. So let me give you a different vision, a biblical vision of marriage. It's team. You are built to be on a team, but it's a two-person team. You got a husband, you got a wife, you are built to be together and do life together. We don't look at marriage like that. We look at marriage like, I don't know, I just kind of got married and you're hot, I'm hot, let's be hot together. Like that's about the depth of our understanding of marriage. But then we have trouble and anxiety and fighting. We don't know why. Why is it such a mess? I can tell you why. Because you're living off of cultural rules rather than God's design. So here we go. At the beginning, God created Eve, the very first woman, our first mother, with the special design of femininity. She was equal to Adam in value. They're both humans. They're both built in the image of God. They're both the same value. But they are different in role, and she was built as his helper. She was built to help him. She was built to come alongside of him and to be a teammate to Adam. So we'll talk about Adam's role, masculine role, in a couple weeks, to love and lead his home and care for his home. But today we talk about the feminine side of masculinity and teamwork, which is God built females and femininity to be primarily helpers, to help, to support, to come alongside, to use all their gifts to do good to their husband, to the world, to their friends. And that tends to be heavily what women value, which is relationships. Men, they hardly even know who they work with. Like some men have sometimes worked for 20 years next to a dude and like, what's your name? But women, even in jobs they have, they're just like, tend to be heavily invested in their relationships. So watch, women tend to be heavy relation, men tend to be heavy occupation, okay? It's how God built the beauty of the sexes to work together. The genders are built to work together, not against each other. And so in a marriage, we are built to be a team. We're built to work together, not against one another. That's why our divorce rate's off the chart. We have one of the highest divorce rates in the world as a modern culture, which is insane. What that tells me is this. When you get married, you really don't even have any idea why you're getting married. You're hoping that a guy makes you happy. Or you're hoping that a woman makes you happy. And the minute you're not happy, you're like, why am I even in this marriage? I'm out of here. It's because you never understood what marriage was supposed to be in the first place. So here we go. She was equal to Adam in value, but different in role as his helper. This role is not one of inferiority, but complementary. They're equal but different. As even God himself identifies as a helper. So the Hebrew word for helper is ezer, which means God built Eve to be Adam's ezer, which means a helper, to come alongside, to be a teammate, to be a let's make our lives great together person. God literally calls himself an ezer, which means he comes alongside humanity. God's even greater than us. But he still calls himself a helper. I will help humanity. So this role isn't one of inferiority, but it's equal but complementary but different. It's teamwork. And many times we don't think of our marriage as teamwork, we think of our marriage as competition, which is why we have fractured marriages. But instead of care, sin produced role conflict rather than cooperation. Look at me. Hey, the reason you have fighting in your marriage isn't because you married the wrong person. It's because you're being the wrong person. Write that the heck down, tattoo it to your marital face. Because you're like, I think I married the wrong guy. No, you're just the wrong woman in this situation. You're like, how can that be? I'm going to help you. Here it is. Men rejoice in helpful wives. We got one guy that's brave. We got one brave guy out of thousands. God bless you, sir. Here we go. Here it is. Men, husbands, rejoice in helpful wives, but they regret contentious ones. Ladies, think about when you're on a team. You were on a volleyball team or a basketball team or whatever. Think about a teammate that just didn't want to play, just critical and angry at the coach, or just like all the time you're like, come on. Like, why are you like that? It's like, think about a time at work when it's like the woman that just like keeps on doing the thing that just makes you not even want to come to work. You just kind of, change your attitude, lady. It's not the job that's the problem, it's your attitude at the job. Same thing is also true in the home. Ready? I'm going to break something into your minds, ladies, that you probably have never heard before because it doesn't get taught to you on TikTok. Ready? You control the emotional and relational temperature of your home. Your husband does not control that. Men's strengths are primarily financial, help the home happen. And a woman's gifts to the home are primarily relational. She brings the feeling to the home. Men oftentimes provide the foundation for the home. I'll pay the bills, I'll go out and bust my back to make sure my home functions. But women primarily provide just the feel of the home. What does the home feel like when you walk into it? That's God's gift of power to femininity that men can't fabricate. You walk into a dude's home and you're like, dude, what's wrong with this place? This place is sketchy. But you walk into a home that a woman loves, and like you feel that hospitality, you feel that like relational connection. It's something very unique about femininity. Here it is. Look at Genesis 3:16. I'm going to show you why you have dysfunction in your marriage. And we're going to work on fixing it. In Genesis 2:18, talked about God builds Adam a helper, a teammate. And here's Genesis 3:16, the reason why we fight. One of the reasons why we fight. To the woman, he said, this is after sin enters the world, so God's going to curse femininity. He cursed masculinity, which we'll talk about in a couple weeks, and now he's going to curse femininity because of the sin that Adam and Eve, when they chose to rebel against God. I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. Any women ever had pain when they give a child birth? I never have, so I did all the hard work. And so my wife did her job too. No. So watch. This is birth was supposed to be this beautiful, you're bringing another human into the world, which is God's design for sexuality and femininity, that God allows women to like nurture and birth a human, another eternal human into the world. So it was supposed to be this beautiful thing where I am bringing another person into the world, but instead it's painful and anxiety-ridden for a lot of women, and it didn't used to be like that. But God, that's part of God's curse on sin. And here's the other part. Here's the relational part that hurts the feminine side of marriage. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband. No brave men on amens on that one. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you, which means this. Your husband's still the leader. Your husband's still the leader. It doesn't mean he's better. It doesn't mean he's a dictator. It means he's your leader. He leads the home. You're his helper to help his leadership happen. But guess what? You're going to fight against the leadership you really love. Because I can tell you, after doing 20 years of premarital and postmarital counseling, you know what I hear over and over and over, even from women that aren't even Christians? They go, I just want my husband to lead our home. I'm just exhausted. I'm exhausted. I got my own full-time job. I got to come home. I got to make sure the house works. I got to make sure, food's on the table, or the house is clean, or the kids got their homework done, or they're doing the blah, 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 blah. And I got to worry about my marriage. I got to worry about my sex life. I got to worry about all these things, blah, blah, blah. And I just want my husband to lead us. I don't want to have to be the one going, sweetie, should we go to church today? It's kind of drizzly. Like I have to spiritually lead my home. I have to relationally lead my home. I have to chip in some money with the job I have. Like I'm just exhausted. Exactly. Because our culture lied to you. Our culture has lied to women for about the last 100 years. Saying you can do everything. You can't do everything. You're not built to do everything. I can't believe most women just clapped right there. That was amazing. But that's the point I'm making. I'm not just making this stuff up out of the air. It's exhausting for women to go, I have to be a man too. which is why women say, dude, be a man. But the men in our culture are going, I don't know what that is. Because I've been taught to be a woman my whole life. I don't even know what does that even mean? Right, exactly. So I'm going to talk about masculinity in a couple weeks, but I want to start here, ladies, because you are the relational strength of your home. Okay? So in a really sad, ironic way, women want leadership. They want loving leadership. Just please lead our home. But here's the problem: is they want leadership, but they also want to control. Oh, all of a sudden we don't like that. Okay. Right, exactly. You're like, please lead us, but not like that. Right. I literally just described every problem in every marriage ever. Man. I'm preaching. Oh, now everybody's, okay. Here we go. Listen, even if you're a single woman, I'm helping your future. I want you to understand marriage, and because our culture, TikTok and Insta, Face to Snap to Chat, has totally lied to you about how to run your life as a woman. Okay, you can't do everything. You're built to have a certain role in marriage. When you do that role well, God will bless you. When you fight that role and fight your husband, you're going to have chaos. So that's what we're going after today. And here's a perfect reel I found, which is the voice of Ryan from The Office. But it talks about how women struggle in what they want out of a man, but yet they kind of don't want it. And here's Genesis 3:16 right here in a reel.
I want leadership, but don't just like boss me around, you know? Like lead me. Lead me when I'm in the mood to be led. I want leadership, but don't just like boss me around, you know? Like lead me. Lead me when I'm in the mood to be led.
Right. There it is. That's every struggle that every marriage has ever had. I want my husband to lead, but I still want to control him. I love leadership, but I want to make sure he does it the way I want it done. Men who hate to be manipulated fight that, and that is literally why we have separation in our marriages. Men don't want to be manipulated. Women want leadership. They love loving leadership, but they want to manipulate how that leadership happens. Here we go. Oh boy, here we go. Look at Proverbs 12:4. Proverbs 12:4. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband. This is just like men love helpful wives. Men love a great teammate. That's why men love competition. Men love to be on teams. Because they love that camaraderie and that like, let's do this thing together. In the military or at a job or whatever the competition is, men love that stuff. And one thing they love out of their wives is wives that just go, how can I help? An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, which means her husband just loves life because of his amazing wife. It's what he talks about. It's the thrill of his heart to go home to her, to know that his wife has his back. She's his best friend. She's the best thing in his whole life. That's what it means to have like a crown. Like everywhere you go, like that's the greatest thing in my life. Look at it. It's awesome. But she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones. A wife that brings shame to her husband, because men are built for respect. And when they feel disrespected, they fight that. And when their wives are disrespectful, especially in public, like you hear just a woman screaming at her husband, like just being disrespectful, like at a restaurant or whatever, and you just kind of go, sorry, son. You got to go home with her. It's that thing. Look at Proverbs 27:15. Proverbs 27:15. A continual dripping on a rainy day and a quarrelsome wife are alike. Please stop. Stop. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go to the garage and drink Schlitz and work on the bike. Good old malted liquor from 1978 or whatever. Hey, ready? That's what I'm talking about. Women have that much power to make a husband's life awesome as a teammate, or have him just not even want to be part of the team. But look at the good side. Proverbs 31:11 and 12. Proverbs 31:11 and 12. The heart of her husband trusts her. Be a woman that your husband can trust, financially, sexually, relationally. The heart of her husband trusts her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good, not harm, all the days of his life. Wow. Dude, for men, when you have a wife like that, you don't have to be a perfect wife. There's no perfect women, there's no perfect wife, except for mine. But outside of that, ready? You're not going to be perfect, but you can be functional and helpful. You can be a wife that just makes your husband go, I literally have the best wife in the world. She's awesome. Like, my wife is just bomb-ola. I love having my wife in my life. Just like order on a successful team, a company, or in the military, wives are to be submissive, helpful, and beneficial to their husbands. So, everybody look at me. Look. Stop doodling and look at me. Everybody look. Ready? Submission is not one of value. Submission is one of order. God calls us to be orderly in our government, to make sure we don't cause chaos. Ready? God expects us to be orderly in our home. Husbands are to love and lead their homes in love and help everybody function well, which I'll talk about in a couple weeks. But wives are not to just fight all the leadership decisions of their husbands. They are to come alongside their husbands, not fight everything. Imagine how frustrating it is if you're a leader at work or whatever you do, ladies, and just there's always that person that like puts their foot in front of you, and it's like it's exhausting to move forward. And so the idea here is this: if it's not illegal, immoral, unethical, unbiblical, be a supporter. Come alongside, not jump in front of. Now let me flip the coin all the way over. Submission is not about abuse. So I have that in your notes, okay? Because many times you've never heard this on TikTok, you've never heard this when you grew up in high school. Many of us have never heard this in churches, which is crazy. Or you've heard a really bad version of this, which is this idea. Submission is about staying in even when there's abuse, okay? That's not true. So listen to me, ladies, or if you're listening to me online, okay? Because I want this to be very clear. Submission is about order, not about abuse. If you have abuse in your home, physical abuse, I'm gonna tell you right now, call the police, get out, and get help. Okay? So you heard that from me as your pastor, okay? Submission is not about staying in an abusive situation. God called me to stay here and I have to take this abuse. It's not that. You get out, call the cops, get safe with your kids, whatever the situation is. All right? I just want to make that clear. That God doesn't call us to that. God calls us to order and to peace. And then we work back towards reconciliation in a peaceful home. But if there's violence or whatever, get out, get safe. It's always God's calling for you to make sure you're safe. Okay? And then we work back towards reconciliation as long as there's safety there. Okay? Here's our principle. Godly wives help build godly homes. Woo! Look at me, ladies. Your home, many times, will only be as relationally godly as you are. You are the heart of your home. It pumps your blood. It has your values. What you pour into your children, what you pour into your husband. You are massively valuable. Which leads us to number 2, an otherworldly spirit. Number 1, otherworldly support. Be a support to your home and your husband. And number 2, an otherworldly spirit. God has gifted women and wives with relational influence. A wife's words and attitude are so powerful, it can even help her husband become a Christian. Hey, you want to talk about power? You want to know what's weird? Scripture never says when a wife sees her husband act nice, she could become a Christian. But you know what it does say? It says women have such relational power, femininity has such relational power, that when husbands who aren't Christians, but his wife is, when he sees Jesus in her, the way she acts toward him, the way she is toward the children, the way she functions, he can be led to the Lord by his wife's, how his wife lives. Because husbands go, what's different? You're like weird and awesome. That wasn't the way you were in college when we first met. That wasn't the way you were a year ago, but all of a sudden you got this Jesus and you're totally different. It's a true story after first service. A guy comes up and he goes, hey, I've been coming here for like 2 or 3 months, and my wife got baptized here. And he goes, I'm not a Christian, but he's basically saying, I've seen the change in my wife's life. And I want to come in and talk to a pastor because I think I'm going to become a Christian. And so I said, hey, true story. After the first service. So you know what I told him? I literally told him to his face across the table right there. I go, you were just in the verse I talked about this morning. You were in Scripture where it says, wives, based on your conduct, you can literally lead your husband to the Lord, because he goes, man, this is unnatural for my wife to be this awesome. Not about herself, about somebody else. And now literally her husband's going to come to Jesus because of her conduct. So this isn't made up stuff. Like, this is legit. Here it is. Christian women have a calling to give their best intellectually, emotionally, and physically for God's glory and the benefit of others. Here's our principle. Do you want to be a wife or just have a husband? Ooh, snap. Look at that. Because you know what? I hear young ladies go, I just want a husband. I don't want to be alone. I want to make babies. And then I'll ask them, do you want to be a wife or do you just want to be a single woman with a husband? Because a wife is different than a single woman. In the way you dress, in the way you talk, in the way you act. Because a wife represents her husband. A wife represents her home. A wife represents her marriage. Do you want to be a wife, part of the team, or do you just want a husband so somebody else pays the bills? Do you just want some other dude to do the heavy lifting of like making your life work and be able to buy stuff, or do you actually want to be a helper to him? Because a wife is different than a chick on the side. A wife says, I want to be part of this team. And I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to use all the gifts I've got to make your life better and our home able to glorify God. Wives play a vital part in the health and vitality of their marriage and family. The wife should always share her wisdom and desires from a heart of respect and not manipulation. Here's our principle. Men don't need controllers, they need contributors. That could have been the whole sermon, that one sentence. Ready? Women have a desire to control their husbands, to manipulate him sexually, emotionally. Like, I'm not going to do this thing unless you do this thing. Don't be that woman. Be a woman that goes, I'm on this team. I'm 100% for you, sweetie, because you look hot. And you're in shape. Round is a shape. That's what I love about you, hot husband. Ready? Men hate to be controlled. Women want to control their relationships, so oftentimes they will manipulate their husbands. Men hate to be controlled. So when they feel manipulation, they avoid and get away. Which is oftentimes then she's unhappy, he's unhappy, divorce happens. Listen, ladies, look at me, and I'm done. Look at me. Our culture's obsessed with looks.